Greetings to Dr. Lucy. My name is Ridot, metric number 72976. This video is made for our assessment number 2, documentary. The topic I have chosen, title, How Facebook Neglected the Rest of the World, Fueling Hate Speech and Violence. So further any delay, I would like to start with the video. Uprooted from their homeland by a campaign of targeted violence launched by Myanmar military in August 2017, some 700,000 ethnic Rohingya refugees sought safety just across the border in Bangladesh. They joined thousands of community members who had fled earlier episodes of violence and abuse. Today, more than a million of Rohingya are living in Bangladesh. The Rohingya crisis is decade old and we won't talk much about the facts and numbers. Instead, I'm here to talk about a familiar name, Facebook. What was Facebook's role in the Rohingya genocide and how it is complicit in Myanmar's attack on minorities? Since Facebook launched in Myanmar, it has become the actual internet for the country. Since then, hate speech against Rohingya has been spreading through Facebook. Finally, we know what happened in Myanmar. UN human rights investigators have since concluded that hate speech on Facebook played a key role in fomenting violence in Myanmar. The company admitted it had failed to prevent the platform from inciting offline violence in Myanmar. Facebook was complicit in genocide. There was already signs and strong calls for Facebook to handle the incitement of violence on the platform, but their inaction contributed to the fanning of violence in Myanmar. However, after enough empirics was provided by several independent researchers and organizations, almost after 2 years in 2018, Facebook admitted in an official statement that it hadn't done enough to prevent its platform from being used to foment division and incite offline violence in Myanmar. Now, back in very recent time, we look if Facebook is actually keeping up their statements or taking any measures from spreading or preventing hate speech on the platform. In South Asia, mainly India and Bangladesh, Facebook has been selective in curbing hate speech, misinformation and inflammatory posts. Facebook has been aware of the problems and has been cautioned about the substantial steps the platform has taken to deal with hate speech. According to reports, Facebook's own staff members have been concerned about mishandling communal hoaxes. Over the years, Facebook has become increasingly influential. Its control has risen unchecked to a point where the platform has started playing an essential role in the politics of many countries, not just in India. According to Facebook, saw India as one of the most at-risk countries. It also sees Hindi and Bengali languages as priorities for automation on violating hostile speech. More than 520 million people speak Hindi and more than 200 million people speak Bengali. Facebook claims it has invested in technology to identify hate speech in various languages, including Hindi and Bengali, and remove them from the platform. It also claims to remain committed to updating policies on the issue of hate speech. However, according to reports, Facebook failed at employing enough local language moderators. It fails at putting a full content flagging strategy in place. However, the Facebook users experiment raised an alarm about misleading content. The experiment had alarming conclusions. Facebook's misinformation tags were not clear enough for the users. The platform needed to do more to send hate speech and fake news. But if all say that Facebook has failed at removing religion sensitive content. Thousands of pages of internal documents provided to Congress by a former employee of Facebook indicated that Facebook policy decisions show that platform routinely makes exceptions for powerful actors when enforcing content policy. It rarely employs local policy heads from ethnic groups. Much of the abusive content was never flagged since Facebook lacked classifiers and moderators. And the problem is not specific to South Asia. Facebook continues to meddle in the politics of other countries. This has started to doubt on its motivation as well as interest. For instance, in the United States, as presidential elections drew closer, it was suspected that the platform optimized itself from boosting politically controversial content, which tended to get more clicks. Now, let me talk a bit about the context of India. Facebook's products in India were awash with inflammatory content linked to deadly religious riots. Proactive content on Facebook spiked 300% above previous levels by December 2019, a period in which religious protests swept India. Researchers wrote in a July 2020 report reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. According to the news, rumors and calls to violence spread on Facebook's WhatsApp messaging service in late February 2020, when communal violence in Delhi left 53 dead. India is Facebook's biggest market with hundreds of millions of users. Hindu and Muslim users in India say they are subjected to a large amount of content that encourages conflict, hatred, and violence on Facebook and WhatsApp. Such a material blaming Muslims for the spread of COVID-19 and assertion that Muslim men are targeting Hindu women for marriage as a form of Muslim takeover over the country. Private Facebook groups made up of like-minded users generated more divisive content. Inflammatory content primarily targeted Muslims, the researchers wrote. Facebook was so concerned about how its services were tied to the communal conflict that it dispatched researchers to interview dozens of users. A Hindu man in Delhi told them he received frequent messages on Facebook and WhatsApp that are all very dangerous, such as Hindus are in danger, Muslims are about to kill us. The researchers reported Facebook researchers determined that two Hindu nationalist groups with ties to India's ruling political party post inflammatory anti-Muslim content on the platform, according to separate reports by teams investigating abuse of the company's service earlier this year. According to one report, the researchers recommended one of the organizations be kicked off for violating the company's hate speech rules, but the group remains active. The other group, researchers said, promote incitements to violence, including dehumanizing posts comparing Muslims to pigs and dogs and misinformation claiming the Quran calls for men to rape their female family members. That group also remained active on Facebook and wasn't designated as dangerous due to political sensitivities. The report also showed that Facebook is privately aware that people in its largest market are targeted with inflammatory content and that users say the company isn't protecting them. The documents are part of an extensive array of internal Facebook communications reviewed by the journal that offer an unparalleled look at how its rules favor elites. Its algorithms breed discord and its services are used to incite violence and target vulnerable people. However, keep chanting their old sayings that they are trying to resolve this and insisting on internal research to proactively identify where to improve. Moreover, Facebook's approach in confronting groups, those also somewhat associated with the ruling party, that propagate hate speech, orchestrating and inciting violence, might endanger the company's business prospects. However, when questioned, Facebook spokesperson Andy Stone declined to comment on the Hindu nationalist group activities on Facebook, but said that a company bans groups or individuals after following a careful, rigorous, and multidisciplinary process. I would be patching up on the argument in the context of Bangladesh, whether Facebook is actually bringing changes into their policies to hate speeches and preventing communal violence or not. Bangladesh is worried over a sudden increase in the incidence of communal violence, especially those targeting the country's religious minorities. It is concerned about the role of social media platforms like Facebook, which was used to spread rumors and provocative pictures to start the cycle of violence against minority groups. A very recent incident of communal violence happened in Bangladesh in October 2021 on the eve of Durga Puja festival, the most celebrated and sacred festival of Bengali Hindus. The Durga Puja was fueled by Facebook lives and posts showing the Holy Quran at the feet of a Hindu god in a puja pandal at Kumilla. Kumilla's attack on the country's minority Hindu community spread to neighboring southern districts of Noakhali, Chatpur, Chittagong and Feni as far down as Bandarban in the hill tracts bordering Myanmar. 8 people died in the violence that followed, 4 Hindus stabbed by Muslim hardliners and 4 Muslim rioters shot at by police while they attacked Hindu temples. The government has now arrested dozens of rioters, including those who provoked the violence through Facebook Live from Kumilla. One miscreant who had allegedly placed the Quran at the feet of the Hindu god has also been arrested. But what has upset the government more is Facebook's failure to block this provocative post with fake pictures. Telecom Minister Mustafa Jabbar said that during the violence, which erupted on October 13, the government tried its best to convince Facebook to block 100 odd accounts used to spread the fake Quran at Hanuman's feet picture, with calls for avenging the insult to Islam. But Facebook came up with its usual excuses that blocking these accounts would impede freedom of speech. Though it took on board our government's concern, Facebook says it took due note of concerns expressed by some Bangladeshis, including government functionaries. But it failed to explain why the offending accounts promoting violence through hate speech like SK Media or Jewel Paradoxical were not blocked. One reason could be massive views that these accounts are notching up. However, this is not doing business on social media platforms when burning someone's house. This is not the first time communal violence against Hindu minorities in Bangladesh has been organized using Facebook. Previously, creating fake posts in a Hindu name by Muslim jailers was used to foment anti-Hindu riots in Nasrinagar near Kumilla in 2016, and before that anti-Buddhist riots at Ramu in the far south of the country. A report in Bangladesh leading news portal bdnews24.com has shown how Facebook has been repeatedly used by Islamist radicals to whip up Muslim frenzy through fake posts since 2013. Former Deputy Telecom and Information Minister Tarana Halim mentioned that Facebook has become a convenient vehicle for spreading hate, a force multiplier against a government determined to stop communal violence for the Islamist and other online groups. Senior Bangladesh journalists like Masuda Watti and Shumi Khan had earlier complained of Facebook's alleged bias in blocking posts about 1971 Pakistani atrocities with historical pictures of genocide. It allowed Islamist radicals a free run with hate speech and fake content. Both said their Facebook accounts were temporarily blocked after their post on the 1971 atrocities. The outcry against Facebook in Bangladesh comes when a similar uproar against the platform in West has been rising. While testifying to the Online Safety Bill Committee in London, whistleblower Frances Haugen told the British lawmakers that Facebook is unquestionably making hate wars. She said Facebook safety teams are under-resourced and Facebook has been unwilling to accept even little silvers of profit being sacrificed for safety. Facebook employees have long blamed the company for failing to stop abusive content in countries where such speech would likely cause the most harm. For over a decade, Facebook has emerged as the world's dominant online platform, currently operating in more than 190 countries with more than 2.8 billion monthly users posting content in more than 160 languages. But this unusual speedy expansion has often been at the cost of gross misuse of the platform for hate speech, inflammatory expression and misinformation that has led to violence. Internal company documents reviewed by Reuters show that Facebook has not hired enough workers with language skills and local knowledge to identify objectionable posts in several developing nations. A Reuters report says the document also showed that the artificial intelligence systems Facebook employs to root out such content frequently are not up to the task either. The company has not made it easy for its global users to flag posts that violate the site's rules. These shortcomings, employees warned in the documents, could limit the company's ability to make good on its promise to block hate speech and other rule-breaking posts in places from Afghanistan to Yemen. In a review posted to Facebook's internal message board last year regarding ways the company identifies abuses on its site, one employee reported significant gaps in certain countries at the risk of real-world violence, specifically in Myanmar and Ethiopia. The documents were part of disclosures made to the US Securities and Exchange Commission and Congress by Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen, a former Facebook product manager who left the company in May. Facebook spokesperson Mavis Jones said in a statement that the company has native speakers worldwide reviewing content in more than 70 languages and experts in humanitarian and human rights issues. She said these teams are working to stop abuse on Facebook's platform in places with a heightened risk of conflict and violence. She claimed that they know about these challenges, which are real, and they are proud of the work they have done till date. But internal Facebook documents point to alarms raised by employees in recent years over lack of screening algorithms for language used in some of the countries Facebook has deemed most at risk potential real world harm and violence stemming from abuse on its site. It won't stop here, it will only get worse. Facebook, however, will probably keep denying the facts of how much worse they have done to human security and democratic practices. They will rather keep chanting and provide facts to show they are making improvements, making Facebook a safer platform. But what they will not say is their algorithm is optimizing for the highest level of engagement. The app will be so addictive that parents will no longer need to worry about a crying baby. They will just give their child a phone and social media will be taking care of the child for a while. The algorithm will slowly tweak the political view and religious sentiments of the kid based on the money it receives from Facebook advertisement and the advertisers. And we'll be having a generation whose minds will be filled with hatred against other human beings. All of this will happen if you do not take a step back now. However, as Francis Haugen mentioned, I still hope some sort of accountability to the stakeholders could make Facebook safe for the societies. That was all from me. Thank you for listening and having patience.